An attack on two oil tankers in ports in Iraq mark the 12th day of the U.S. Israel Iran war. On top of that, Iran's president has issued three conditions for peace, showing no signs that this war will actually come to an end. And those three conditions are the recognition of Tehran's legitimate rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future aggression. Except on this same 12th day, the United Nations Security Council condemns Iran's retaliatory strikes in the Middle East. That's right. The majority of the United Nations, because 135 other countries signed on to this, are condemning the IRGC. And in another twist of irony, Russia proposed calling for an end to the war that didn't assign blame or even name the parties, and that was rejected. And the reasoning was because of the hypocrisy of Russia having a war with Ukraine. And the reason why 12 days is significant is because the last war was 12 days long, and that was just last summer, although many argue that this is just a continuation of that war, and that war is a continuation of a string of wars and attacks and conflicts that have sprung up because of the IRGC. And so the issue before everyone now is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and how President Trump plans to tackle that. Well, CENTCOM just warned civilians in a press release stating that civilians are warned to avoid ports used by Iranian forces. Gee, I wonder why. Over the last week, the U.S. has sunk over 50 Iranian vessels, to include many smaller vessels that are docked in ports, as you see in the video behind me. But that hasn't stopped the IRGC from being effective at closing the Strait of Hormuz, as they are able to still conduct drone strikes against vessels that try and traverse it. Insurance companies have decided not to pay, and the U.S. providing that pay and that type of escort assistance has yet to really materialize. And I think part of the reason for that is that the U.S. is actually going to have to secure this area, which is part of the reason why they told civilians to get out. That's probably the next phase. Many wonder why they didn't start with that, but there was a lot of other targets that had to take place. This will eventually get handled, but it's going to take some time, especially if there are some mines that have to be cleared. So the price of oil stays around $95, and the reason why it's staying around this range is for a couple of factors. President Trump keeps coming out and saying this war will be ended quickly, which calms some emotional fears there. And then the International Energy Agency, the IEA, released 400 million barrels of oil onto the market, which is the largest release ever in history, to also relieve some pressure. And so it's basically a whole of economic global approach to try and keep this under control while the U.S. and Israel prosecute their conflict with the IRGC. Now, before the pro-dictator crowd comes out and champions how awesome the IRGC is doing by being able to close the Strait of Hormuz, I could list off the 5,000 plus targets that have been prosecuted against the IRGC, or the myriad of video footage out there. In fact, CENTCOM released over 100 hours of video footage of basically just strikes on the IRGC. So, we're clearly winning this war, but it's going to take a little bit longer. And the reason for this is because the IRGC is still able to get shots off from the shoreline, and maybe just beyond, because they're still able to utilize their drones. Now, three more vessels were hit by projectiles. That's what the report said, and they couldn't definitively say if it was drones or not. But regardless, there is still a degraded drone capability that the IRGC is able to leverage because they hide amongst the civilian populace. They hide in urban zones. They have covert abilities to be camouflaged, and it's just much harder to locate them and destroy them. But we have destroyed their factories, their production capabilities, and so it's only a matter of time before they also run out of drones. Or they pop their head up and we take them out. So this is just a continuation of a conflict that will likely be going on for the next couple of weeks. Now, of course, that's the most optimistic outlook, and it's not out of the realm of the possible, but the likelihood of it going past the next couple of weeks is, fairly high, and it's to be understood that, these type of things are event-driven more than they are time-driven, but it's also to be understood that we are ahead of our own schedule, so, it could be ending any time between the next couple of weeks and maybe the next couple months. But we'll definitely have the Strait of Hormuz secured and open by then, and oil tankers will be able to pass freely, and the global economy can take a sigh of relief.